Hello guys, I will tell you about how I chose the printer and what made me choose this one. I had an idea for a 3D printer in my head for a long time. Ever since the technology became available to ordinary people, I have been looking in this direction. At first I didn't know what to use it for. I only admired what was created with the use of these devices. I was fascinated by this when I read articles about printed tools on the ISS. I was curious about what tools I could print myself and what else I could do apart from the tools themselves. For a long time I was held back by the cost of the printer itself. 10 years ago my idea of cost and technology was pretty slim. I had pricing information from local hardware stores or from computer magazine articles. On the other hand, building a printer on my own seemed like rocket science. Unfortunately, in the last few years, the budget issue hasn't changed so much that I could afford a printer that is recognized as a benchmark of quality. That's why I decided to do a research in order to buy a printer with the best possible quality for the price. Looking at myself and my friends who have had their first contact with 3D printing technology, I can see what is the concept of such a person about this technology and what it really is. First of all, it may seem that a 3D printer is a magical device that simply produces a finished product like a factory without problems and stress. Unfortunately, this is not the case. To start your adventure, you must at least learn the basics of using this device and what you have to face. Although, looking at Fix My Print Reddit, not all people follow it. I often see posts from people who think that a 3D printer works similarly to the 2D one. Just bought a device online or from a local garage sale and are surprised why the nozzle has milled the pattern of the first layer in the bed. Besides, Reddit is a very good source of information both for the person who wants to get into the topic and for the novice user who needs help. The community is really cool. For example, on Stack Overflow, you would at most get the answer that the topic has been here many times and why you can't use the search engine. However, on Reddit, even if the problem has already appeared twice today, you will still get a sensible advice on what may be the cause of your problem. Don't be afraid to use the Reddit community, they are really great people. Moving on the main topic. Why such a printer? I have read many guides, which I recommend you to do also. However, please pay attention to the pseudo guides that you can usually find on websites. Not always, and I suspect that quite often such articles are rather paid promotion for several products, and watch out for the list of top 10 printers or those where the first places are occupied by rather not commonly met devices. Unfortunately, the hardware promotion market is different in each country. There are countries where an article on portal, a post on social media or video must be clearly marked that the creator received some kind of gratification for the presented items, even if it was only the presented equipment. Unfortunately, even in some countries, checking whether the creator has marked the content well is not always efficient. There are also countries where the law regarding paid promotions are quite loose or non-existent. Therefore, it's quite likely that if you use only one or two sources of information, you will come across not very honest reviews. In addition, when the creator reviews the equipment, he does it from his perspective, so you need to take a correction to it. There is a saying among my countrymen, opinion is like your bottom, everyone has their own. So get your own opinion about what you are looking for. I set a few things for myself that I would like my printer to have. So, direct drive extruder, full metal hot end, minimum 20 by 20 by 20 centimeters build volume, some kind of auto leveling, and double Z axis. I also thought about what materials I would like to print, and here I didn't deviate from the others, so I wanted to print with everything. But in reality, I limited myself to such materials as PLA, ASA, PETG and TPU. And of course, the budget. Here, unfortunately, all my whims crashed against the wall, because I had about 300 euros to use. Here I think it's worth mentioning that I am focusing on ensuring that a purchase of a printer doesn't burden the household budget too much. It seems to me that many people like me don't want to spend more money on the printer and prefer to focus on looking for something cheaper but meeting the requirements. At this point you can already see that the Prusa MK3S, considered as a determinant of quality, has already dropped out, but I have this printer in my sight anyway, sometime in the future, maybe. I've checked what manufacturers such as Anycubic, Reality, Flashforge and Artillery have on offer. The Anycubic Mega X and Hyron were within my financial reach, and I like them because of the printing space they offer. In addition, my friend has the Mega X model and is happy with it. So this is another argument for this printer. From Creality's offer, the Endorf 3 printer or its newer version Endorf 3 V2 suited my budget the best. The printing space was smaller than on the previous one, but I saw a lot of upgrades to this printer. Some were only visual and I didn't see any sense in them, maybe because I'm a rather practical person. However, the practical modifications were quite interesting and there were a lot of them, probably because the Ender is a very popular printer. In addition, I really like the print bed and the offer of accessories on the market from the both manufacturer and third-party sellers. The downside, in this case, was lack of the second Z-axis and the filament sensor. But still, I added V2 to the list of potential printers. Then it was time to explore something a little different, Flashforge. Here I considered the Adventurer 3 model, although it was still a little over my budget. And these types of printers are a difficult topic. On the one hand, as a man who likes to tinker with his equipment, I would prefer something easier to modify or upgrade. On the other hand, knowing the history of 2D printing, we know how it will look like, and it will look like a plug-and-play device closed for modifications. The Flashforge Adventurer 3 printer is trying to be a device of the future, but another term suits me better. How would I say it? I think the German Volksmaschine fits best here. A machine for the people. Or at least it should look like this so that parents who are unfamiliar with technology can buy them for their kids for their birthday. The website is structured in this way. We have kids there with their mother during a birthday party, I think. This suggests and even forces the appearance of the thought, well, this printer is some kind of a gift idea. And I said, some kind of, because not necessarily good. It's nice that the printer has a filament sensor and prints ABS decently. The other parameters didn't suit my needs enough for me to add this printer to the list. What didn't suit me was dedicated nozzle or hot end module, which is quite expensive, the capacity of only half a kilo spool. If you want to use a standard 1 kilogram spool, you have to print the modification. And small print bed, only 15 by 15 by 15 centimeters. Now, let's move on to the next candidate. Artillery Genius Pro. Immediately seemed a familiar sight to me. In addition to the printers listed here, I looked at a few other with less commitment. That is why the form of this printer stuck in my memory. I would not like to say that someone is copying someone else's design ideas. All in all, this is not the most important thing here. What matters is the real performance of the equipment. The first very interesting advantage of the printer itself is the titanium extruder. It is something between a Bowden extruder and a typical direct drive. In addition, a filament sensor, double Z-axis, and such a small thing as additional V-rollers are included. However, I was concerned about the touchscreen. I have already seen reviews of several printers where the touchscreen was very clunky. I didn't want that to happen to me. The remaining concerns are the ribbon style cables, not very modular housing of the hot end, and the leveling sensor, which is rather a copy of one of the popular sensors closed in a different housing. Ribbon style cables may not so much limit the possibility of upgrading, but if we do, our custom cables will not look good fastened with factory ribbon cables. Let's move on to the cons. Low max temp of the nozzle, only 240 C. Operating sound less than 70 decibels. It's not low, I would say that's even loud. A Z-axis coupler made of plastic. A solution where a piece of plastic in such a place will retain its longevity between two pieces of metal works rather rarely. And AC heated bed. For some reason I do not trust such solution. Nevertheless, I added this printer to the wish list. It was the only printer I was looking at mainly by looking at the description on local retailer's website. I mention it because I rarely see a less detailed description on the manufacturer's website than on the distributor's website. In this case, the description of the printer was made by someone from marketing who didn't understand the gibberish of the engineer describing the details of the printer's operation. There is a lot of marketing word salad. For example, high-end, fashionable, distinctive design. I think it means high-end, we have a touchscreen. Fashionable, we have blue plastics on. Distinctive design. Our printer looks like any cubic, but we have blue plastics. Or think like self-adaptive broadband PSU. What does that even mean? Especially that even in the photo there is some kind of generic power supply from AliExpress. In short, if you are wondering about artillery, don't go to their website, because I have not seen such a large amount of word salad in such a small space for a long time. Now, maybe a resin printer. And no, it's too complicated, unhealthy, and needs more equipment. If you don't have too much space, such as a garage or other workshop, far from the living space, then this type of printer is not a good idea. A resin printer needs good ventilation, preferably a good filter that will trap unhealthy fumes instead of sending them to your neighbors or back to your home through an open window. In addition, the resin print after printing must be washed from the remnants of the resin and then hardened with UV. You can even harden with the sun, but it's not always the weather for that. Therefore, it is better to equip yourself with a second device for fixing the prints. Not only are resin fumes unhealthy, but mere skin to resin contact can also cause irritation. Therefore, all operations before curing the printout must be performed with gloves and long sleeves. I would consider a resin printer only as a second option, or if you buy a device mainly for printing figurines for D&D or other games. Let's get to the summary. There are many 3D printers on the market that print in better or worse way. There is definitely a lot to choose from, but even when buying equipment from a proven manufacturer, you may encounter a problem. Therefore, I think it's worth getting ready for the possible need to DIY in order to find out what the problem is. I know that some of you care about being in good contact with the manufacturers after sales service. This is partly due to the sales law in a given country and the possibility of making a complaint about the equipment. In the EU, the law is quite pro-customer, and most of these types of matters can be dealt with directly by the seller without the need to return the equipment to the manufacturer by yourself. Therefore, if you live in a large city, you can probably arrange everything in your local store. In my case, my local store provides warranty and post-warranty service for the equipment. Some repairs are performed on site in a short time. In addition, the things that are worth paying attention to when choosing the equipment are in what form the equipment arrives. Is it already partially assembled and there are only a few steps left for you, such as mounting the gantry, screen and spool holder? Or maybe you will have to put together all the little pieces. Choose it depending on how good you feel with tinkering with small parts, lots of cables and screws. Additionally, when buying a cheaper printer, you need to pay attention to such things like fire safety. There are manufacturers on the market who either produce printers that are not well protected or simply at the assembly stage there are problems with tightening the electrical wires. It's always worth adding this one step to assembly to make sure all cables are well secured. Another element that may be important for you is the availability of firmware from the manufacturer and third-party sources. And here it will probably not be a big problem, apart from a few manufacturers who make dedicated hardware with dedicated software. Most printers are based on open source technology. Thanks to this, the community creates great firmware for printers, often much better than those provided by manufacturers. Getting to the bottom of this episode. Which printer did I choose? When I was doing research, Creality released information about a new, improved line called Neo, and I chose the Ender 3 V2 Neo. This printer doesn't have second Z-axis or a direct drive extruder. While it's based on the very popular Ender 3 V2, it differs from the previous model in that the build plate has been changed from glass to PC spring steel. Sear touch sensor has been added and aluminum profiles have been closed on one side. The detail that in my case decided about this printer is the improvement of the layer thickness parameter. This printer is the first in the Ender 3 series to print a layer of 0.05 of millimeter. Surely someone of you started laughing at this point. I think that for each of us, this decisive detail may be different. In my case, it was the thickness of the layer. There are also some downsides to this printer. Since it's new to the market, there are fewer custom software, hardware upgrades and printable visual and functional modifications. Nevertheless, I took the risk and so far I'm satisfied. Finally, I will add that now I know that I would even apply to a mini printer with a printing area of even 12 by 12 by 15 centimeters. There are really a lot of things that don't take up that much space. On the other hand, I had the opportunity to design something that was limited not by my desire, but rather by the print area. In the upcoming video, you will be able to see the unboxing and first prints along with my comments on what I liked and what I didn't. Also, there are a few more videos in the production that I hope you will enjoy. Thank you for attention. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on what you would like to see in the next video.